Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Hi, it's Dr. Gemma, and welcome to episode 83 of the Cognitive Podcast, and a happy Father's Day to everybody who has been a father, had a father, wants a father, or knows a father, or is a father. I think that covers everybody. We had a lovely Father's Day, and I will tell you a little more in the blather. In the meantime, comments are very welcome here. You can comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can go to our group on Ravelry. Let's see what else is going on right now. Well, in the Warm Thanks department, we have had a wet spring and a cool spring. If you look in the show notes, you'll see a happy picture of me on, I think, June 18th, and I'm wearing the feral Easter egg sweater because it's cold. It's been very strange and very wonderful to have this cool spring. One of the major things about it is it has given us a lot of time to work on getting the weeds off the property so that we're not getting fined by the fire department, because there is a kind of wonderful crazy in California that they come around and they inspect to see if you have too many weeds on your property, and if you do and it endangers your home, they fine you. So it's pretty great. If you don't do your job, you not only get your house burned down, but you get a fine for getting your house burned down. All kidding aside, it's a fine thing. And it's very important here because we're all on 5-acre plots where I live. And that means most of our properties are undeveloped. And they're used for things like grazing, or just driving your dirt bike on for some of my neighbors. And that means if there's a wildfire here, everybody's got like 3 acres that's going to go up in a flash like a match. So it is important that we have big areas around our house that are cleared of burnable plants and fuels. So the boys have been out doing that, and it's been great, actually. It's really great to see them do it. It's really great to see the property cleared. And we're having a lot of windstorms this year, so it's very nice to see the safety factor going up really fast every day. Also, I wanted to thank whoever invented Father's Day, because we had a great one. Meanwhile, on to the COVID news. So I keep putting all the information I have, and now we're taking shots down to kids 6 months old, which I'm really happy about. Yes, I now have patients who did not get their vaccinations, and they've gotten very sick from COVID, and there's just nothing to say to that. But it did make me go and look at the records for the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, and what I found is hospitalizations are increasing sharply in LA County. Deaths are increasing slightly, but disturbingly, we had 5,600 new cases yesterday, which is pretty much as high as we were 3 or 4 months into the quarantine in 2020. In other words, we're still getting it. We're not doing that great with it. It's just that people aren't dying of it. Again, I chalk that up to the vaccinations, that people have some ability to fight it. But it is a little bit disturbing that we're getting an increase in positive test results and an increase in hospitalizations and a slight increase in death level. Moral of the story is, please go get your shots. Please go get your booster shots. And at this point, if you're saying you don't believe in the vaccine, you're arguing against the evidence of millions of people who've had the vaccine and had a positive experience. So please keep arguing without any evidence whatsoever. In the meantime, I have the links for anything that I think will be helpful. And the government keeps sending me free COVID tests, and I have the link for that too, so you can sign up for that. Okay, that's grim. Let's move on. What's on my hooks and needles? Well, finished the Noro Heart Scarf. This is a great project. This is number 29, Love Noro is the name of the project, and the link is in the show notes. And so is the picture where I'm looking sort of grim. I don't know why, because I'm really proud of this. This is just beautiful. All this takes is 2 colorways of Noro Corian. Now, I'm tempted to do it in Silk Garden because Corian doesn't feel that good next to the skin. It's kind of scratchy. However, remember, Noro is almost always in long stripes of color. And so if you're going to do this, you have to find strong contrast. And that's not always easy. If you look at the 2 colorways there, the hearts are one colorway in my picture, and the background is a different one. And you can see overlap, that there are dark blues in both colorways. So you have to really look at the colors you're choosing if you're going to make this scarf in Noro. You've got to really think about it. I would also recommend, if you want to make this scarf, go look at the finished projects on Ravelry. And again, link in my show notes to my project, which will take you through to the Noro project page and the finished objects with it. Go take a look at those, because some people experiment with other colors and get these really beautiful outcomes. Noro has kind of weird and unpredictable and wonderful color changes, but you can get an ombre color to do one of the 2 colorways and then pick the second colorway as a solid and high contrast, which some people do, and I may very well do. I don't know if I'm going to keep this scarf because I have a friend who just had heart surgery, and I think a scarf full of hearts might be great for her, and she has indicated that she thinks this is a stunningly beautiful scarf, and I'm here to tell you it is a stunningly beautiful scarf. I think 2 of the most beautiful things I've made as a knitter would be this scarf and the Feral Easter egg, and neither one of them photographs anywhere near up to their beauty. And I'm crazy in love with them both, but I could make this scarf so easily, and that's the great thing. What did I get out of making this? I got Intarsia. I finally figured out why my Intarsia hadn't worked as well when I tried to use it on a hat for my son. And I'm really, really pleased with this. It looks really beautiful. Now, I could also argue that I somewhat did Intarsia when I was doing the collie hats, because you use more than 2 colors in a row, and you do have to switch the balls around in the back. But strictly speaking, it's not exactly the same as doing one big blob of a different colorway in the middle of your pattern. At any rate, you could get this same effect by duplicate stitching your hearts. And the reason you don't, I think, is because the hearts are so big that if you're doing a smaller image on your solid background knitting, duplicate stitching works very, very nicely. But when you get this big, I think the duplicate stitch runs the risk of showing too much of the background through it. So that's the argument for Intarsia. At any rate, Intarsia is not about doing anything special with your needles. What you have to be doing is shifting the bobbins of different colors around in the back when you switch colors in such a way that those background floats are filling the gaps between your first color and the color you switch to. When you completely change colors in a row, you create a hole. And so the whole art form here is to fill that hole with the float in the background without making it look really obvious. So I hope that makes sense. But this is a really nice beginner pattern for Intarsia. The results are just spectacular, and I strongly suspect I will be returning to it either for a sweater or for a cowl, in which case I'd graft the ends together. I'd just make it as a scarf and graft the ends together. I wouldn't try to knit in the round for it because bobbining would make me nuts. But at any rate, I think I will be returning to this, and it is simply beautiful. Okay, having said enough about that, in progress, don't know yet. I think I've figured out that I'm at about 170 blocks right now, and July 19th, at any rate, if I was doing 1 block a day, would be 200 blocks a day. I'm also thinking of crocheting 3 blocks for the days I will be in Kansas, that instead of taking my hook and yarn and model block with me, I may just simply crochet those ahead and leave that home and save myself for knitting on the airplane. In the meantime, no, nothing on the Pennsylvania Dutch embroidery, but that leads me to another thing, as I could also go to with the don't know yet, and that is, if you look in my patterns, you will see that what I am doing right now is winding yarn and planning small projects. So if you look in my Ravelry projects, you will see a group of yarns that are listed as individual projects. And what you get is the name of the project, which is simply the pattern name, and then a picture of the yarn wound and sitting in a yarn sock. Because I am working my way through my stash, and right now my major project is not certain patterns. I do have a list of patterns in my queue that I want to do. But my goal here is not right now to say, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that pattern, and then I'm going to do that pattern. That's actually not my goal. My goal is I'm sitting in a room full of yarn, and a lot of it is scrap yarn. And I'm looking at this, and I'm saying, I want to clear this room out. And the best way to clear it out, frankly, is to knit it. I've thought about relocating it, and I can, that I've used a lot of yarns from my various storage bins. And so I could take some of the yarns I'm sitting here looking at and just dump them in those storage bins. What actually happens when I do that is those things don't tend to get used. So instead of saying, I want to do this project, I want to do that project, I'm a little past that. The reason I'm a little past it is I've sort of taken a hard look at what do I want out of my knitting. And I am not really a knitting artist. I am a craftswoman, which means that I'm always working towards something that is usable for me in some sense. And so, yeah, I want a lot of socks. Why? Because I go all summer without using my socks. And then every winter, I put on 3 or 4 pairs of socks in the first week and kill them. That they were fading and they were getting thin and I didn't realize it. And so I put on a pair of socks, and to my horror, I've only worn it once since the new cold season began, and it's got holes in it. And I am in that school of oh darn, where I just say oh darn and throw it out instead of actually darning it. Because I have replaced the toes and heels of a lot of socks back when my supply was smaller of handmade socks. And that works great. But frankly, I'm sable on sock yarn. I could keep knitting socks for the rest of my life. So I'm not sure why I'm saving old socks unless they have a very deep emotional attachment to me. And frankly, these days I've made so many socks that most of them do not have a deep and emotional attachment. Also, the way I knit, I just do a basic sock. I am not interested in fancy sock patterns. I do one pattern, and that is the blueberry waffle sock. That is what I use for semi-solids. Everything else is just my basic sock. I am the world's most boring knitter, let's be honest. So I am perfectly happy to keep making the basic 2 or 3 sock patterns over and over again. And that's all I want to do. And I'm doing that with hats. Now I've gone a little bit expansive on the hats. I've been looking for watch caps in different sizes of yarn and experimenting with those. But frankly, I am not very brave or very experimental. What I want to do is master the basic patterns and then buy beautiful yarns and let the yarn do all the work. And that includes me doing some of the work like creative or random striping. Okay, so basically my knitting world is all I want to do is plain socks, a bunch of hats, and plain sweaters. And I want to do them for all of us. And everybody in the family has what they need. So when you're that kind of knitter, to get excited about a new pattern isn't going to be that common. So instead, I'm just saying I'd really like to move out some of these yarns that are cluttering up my study at this point. Also, that is where I get creative. That when I'm trying to use a specific yarn and use my own stash instead of buying new, that actually pushes me to look for things I haven't done or things I haven't tried. And don't worry, I went into Sierra Cottons and Wools in last October, and I got sucked right into that Noro Heart Scarf kit. And I went in this time, and I got sucked into Malabrigo Machida, which is not a yarn I would typically buy, but it was all speckled, and the colorways were insanely beautiful. And yes, this week I realized I bought only one skein and I need 2 for the shawl I want to make, which is, by the way, the same old shawl I always make, the Country Cotton Shawl by Lion Brand, a crochet shawl. I just want to make a really, really big lacy one. So, yeah, 800 yards of Machida. And I found that, by the way, I went looking for that online. The colorway I had, called Renaissance, or Renaissance if you're British, was discontinued. So I went online and I found woolandcompany.com, all one word, had a discounted skein or two of it left. So yes, I bought it for $14. I'm pretty happy. So if you look in my projects, you're going to see a bunch of these balls of yarn just rolled up into skeins and stuck in yarn socks and sitting there. And they don't have a start date because they're not started. They're just sitting there. I anticipate taking one or two of them on the plane with me, but I'm going very, very lightly packed on the plane. Really just want to take carry-ons because I'm only there for, 2 nights? So anyway, that's the game plan. So you will also see I haven't done anything on the Pennsylvania Dutch embroidery. It's there. I'm looking at it. I'm thinking about it. I know that's a great summer project. I like doing small, light projects that are easy to carry. So I'm thinking about a considerable amount of embroidery this summer as well. And that also makes summer a great time to do socks, to do hats, to do lacy shawls, and to do little embroideries and heart scarves. All right. The Bright Cherries brick, I'm still considering what I want to do with that. I am this week in favor of simply pulling it all out and making a standard brick for myself out of it since Twin Face doesn't want it. I am tortured by the idea that it would make a great vest in the traditional Ann Budd pattern. But I've also got this beautiful blue jean that I bought, 4 skeins, that would also make a great vest. On top of it, I am still waiting for Onyx Fiber Arts to dye some more bulky weight of her, what's that called, coffee grounds. So I've got 4 of those that I want to make into an Agnes sweater, and I think I need at least 3 more. So I'm sort of hung up here looking at all these obvious things. Of course, it's a wonderful thing to do a vest in the summer instead of having those big arms flopping around in my lap. So right now the Bright Cherries brick is still basically under consideration. All right, what else do I have? Not much. I've got my 2 favorite resources in which I list 3, one of which now is Sierra Cottons and Woolens in Bishop. And I want to give them a boost. I want to keep their link on my show notes because I really want you can buy from them mail order. She does all sorts of wonderful stuff. And I do want you all to be aware of that as we head into the summer season in the mountains. If people are going up to Yosemite or Mammoth, I want you all to know about that shop and to go shop there. The other thing I do in the summer is spinning. And I'm looking at this huge bag of wool that needs to be finished. I have not gotten there yet. We will see. We will see. That usually in the summer there's something or other will lure me, let me think what that could be, into the spinning. But I haven't started yet because I'm really just working my way through all this yarn and trying to clear the space where I do my daytime job. Let's get on to the strategies. Well, I've been talking about long-term emotional management strategies, and I've gone a bit far afield from DBT, and I'm going to continue that tradition because yesterday, on Father's Day, my family and I were sitting at our favorite restaurant in Ojai, California, which is Sea Fresh. And my husband and I somehow got onto the topic of why we're still married after 35 years together, and this July will be our 30th anniversary of our marriage. And it was really odd. We just sort of stumbled backwards into it. And it was great to hear my husband's perspective. So really what I'm talking about in emotional management strategies today is relationship and what makes a successful long-term relationship. And I'm not taking it from any book or any source except us and the book of our lives. And what was really amazing was to listen to my husband formulate it, because we're saying a lot of the same thing, but we say it very differently. And we say it based on different experiences. So today's strategy is from my hubs, and he would call it stop pushing the fail button. Now, I have called this llama logic in the past, and it's a very simple logic. Stop doing what does not work. The interesting thing is this is so obvious and yet so under-practiced. And the first way you practice it, since I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist and since I am driven by research, is you do need a baseline. You do need to say, what have I been doing? When you say, I am unsatisfied with my relationship, You need to look at it and you need to say, what have I been doing? Now, it's interesting when you watch relationships go wrong, what is often being said is, what are they doing to me that I want them to stop? All right, so let's put some boundaries on this. First of all, there are abusive behaviors. And I'm not suggesting by what I'm about to say that you should tolerate abusive behavior from your spouse. There are things that are deal breakers. And they vary much more than you would think. First of all, physical violence is a deal breaker. It just is. It is in the eyes of the law in the United States. So that's a deal breaker. Instantaneously, you've got that going on, you're going to get out. Okay, there's verbal abuse. Again, these are deal breakers. There are other deal breakers. For me, it would be my partner cheating. For me, it is my partner screaming at me. We just don't have that. We don't do that. We don't believe in that. So there is a level where, as a partnership, as a friendship, as any kind of relationship, you have boundaries you agree on, that this is not acceptable within our relationship. And these are often based on culture. They're based on family tradition. There's a lot of ways these come about. So I'm into some deep waters here, and I'm just going to back out slowly, climb back up the beach of my narrative here. And standing firmly on the sand, I'm going to say, okay, knowing that, in failed relationships, you can usually look back and see something going wrong. And the easiest thing is to lay down blame. And I'm really not going to bother with that. Because again, when you're talking about how do I maintain healthy relationships, I have to stop doing what does not work. This may be something that would work for other people. The reality is, I don't have to blame anybody, including myself, to simply say, I was not suited for the job. I am not suited to it. It is not the fault of the environment or anything else. It's just, I am not compatible. I am not. It's not something I should do. I don't do well when I do it. That doesn't carry a moral judgment with it. Well, a lot of things in relationships are the same way. There are things you can do, like watching sports. Nothing wrong with that, except early in my dating, I determined that I did not want to have a long-term relationship with a guy who was too into sports, because I just don't like it. I have had experiences with guys who are real sports fanatics, and that is not for me. Is it bad? No, not at all. They could be doing many worse things than watching football every weekend. It simply isn't for me. Okay, so that's the fail button for me. If I date a guy and he's like, let's go to a football game together, fail. Okay, and that's what my husband was pointing out. He was talking about in his longest term relationship before ours, where he said, when I look back on it now, we both repeatedly pushed the fail button. We both repeatedly did things to each other that we knew the other person didn't like, that we knew would create a problem. And he said, I began to realize that we couldn't stay together. We couldn't do that. And my version of that was, I said, and I would add this as kind of a footnote to this whole strategy. What I learned about relationships from being with him this long is I had to be committed to staying in the relationship. That when something made me angry, I had to step back and say, are you really going to sacrifice your whole marriage because he won't put the garbage out? And sure, you can get into the always or never whine. You always do this. You never help around the house. And that may be true. But the reality is, there was a point where I committed to the relationship, where I said, I'm going to make this work. And when you do that, you are accepting there will be bad phases. You will go through times where things are not working. And instead of abandoning it, you have to hang in and work on gently correcting the course of the relationship. And you may find yourself doing a lot of things, therapy, individually or couples, or gentle change of your own behaviors. So what my husband is saying, stop pushing the fail button. In essence, he's saying, stop looking for a fail button. Start assuming your relationship will last, which is what we have done. We assumed we could get through it, and we've been through an enormous amount of change. And here's the other one. If you're going to be together for a lifetime, there is going to be an enormous amount of change. I mean, we were both prospective English professors when we started dating. Since that time, I've become a psychologist. He has an MBA. Instead of living in Northern California or Washington State, we ended up in Southern California. It's been an enormous amount of change. And so when you look at successful relationship strategy, you have to realize how three-dimensional everybody is in the relationship. You realize that your partner is going to do things you don't like, and you're going to do things that your partner doesn't like. And you're going to have to account for those, and you're going to have to learn strategies to tolerate them because you have to be committed to the relationship. Now, for me, this goes back to what I always call llama logic, which is when we were training the llamas don't act like any other animal I've ever worked with. So the answer is don't hurt your llama, because that's always dangerous. So you're not going to use force to make your llama do what you want. You do have to watch to see what does encourage your llama to do what you want, and then you do it. So you stop asking why with llama logic. You just simply say, this is a peaceful, nonviolent behavior that I am imposing on the llama that I do not have any moral or ethical objections to. And when I impose this behavior, the llama does what I want. So just keep doing that behavior. So, for example, we learned that if you're going to walk out to our llama corral holding a halter, you better have a carrot in the other hand. And you can say all the things about how the llama should obey you, want to obey you, you should be part of it, its herd. That's all beautiful, and it doesn't work. What works? The llama isn't going to put its head through that halter till there's a carrot on the other side of the noseband. Get used to it, buy carrots. Okay, so really what I'm talking about is all the logics that circle around do what works. If you want a relationship, you need relationships. Humans are born to be interconnected. It's lovely to see all the garbage on the internet about introversion. That's all very cute. Yes, you introverts, you're special people, just like extroverts are special people, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is that's usually exaggerated. Most people who think they are introverts simply need recharging time. We live in a very busy social visual culture, so a lot of us don't get recharging time. I am a wild extrovert and I need time by myself, like the time I'm using right now, okay? So instead of looking for ways to categorize people or ways to blame people, instead of adopting roles like I am an extrovert or I am an introvert or blah, 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 those are good guidelines. Mind you, I do often recommend to my patients that they take the Myers-Briggs test and just read the results as food for thought. It's not the most reliable of tests, but it is interesting. Those are good guidelines. In some ways it's like saying I'm a Virgo. But you have to step back and you have to identify what are you doing for your relationships. Are you committed to them? Now these are, of course, non-abusive relationships. If you are finding all your relationships abusive, you need professional help for any number of reasons. That could come from a number of things. Your craziness or the craziness of the people you're with. Either way, you're going to have to find solutions to that. But if you believe that you can commit to good, positive relationships with friends, that's going to mean that your friends are three-dimensional people who will let you down and disappoint you, and you will do the same to them. And you have to stop doing the things that don't work. You have to stop pressing the fail button, and you have to use llama logic. You have to say, what does work? I will do more of that. Okay, let's see what else we've got going here. The Fluffy books. I am still working on the Introduction to American Deaf Culture. Fascinating book. I'm into the more abstract chapters and really enjoying it. I want to correct, I said Professor Holcomb is at Ohlone or Ohlone College. That is in Fremont, California. I don't know why I thought it was in Ohio. I honestly don't know. So I'm correcting that. That's up in Fremont, which is great. I don't know why. I just feel good because the guy is in the same state I'm in. I don't know. I am still waiting to start my ASL course in August, so very exciting times. I finished A Perilous Perspective by Annalee Huber, which is the latest book in the Lady Darby mysteries. They're very interesting. She's building a background cast of characters. The books are settling down somewhat from the excitement of the first few books where Lady Darby is a very unusual and interesting character. So they're falling a little more into that genre of husband-wife mysteries set in an interesting historical era. I enjoyed it. There's no huge social value there, but it's interesting. I'm taking a break from the Enola Holmes series. I am buying them as I get Audible credits. They are really great to listen to. They are short. The books are very short. But I am enjoying those about Sherlock Holmes' canny little sister, and the usual take on Mycroft Holmes, which if you read Sherlock Holmes, almost everybody has the same take on Mycroft. But interesting stuff on Sherlock Holmes' mother. However, having said that, nicely feminist. Do I believe they're possible? Not in the least, but I am enjoying them. It is fun to watch the convolutions of the younger Holmes's mind. I am waiting for those while listening to Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley. Lucy Worsley is one of these blessed creatures. I really like her. She's hosted a whole bunch of historical specials on the BBC. She's been involved with curating museums and great homes and great collections. She must work her butt off. She's had a very fast rise through that area in Britain. And of course, I say that because curating famous properties in Britain is more visible than I think it would be in America, because America does not have a huge emphasis on its historical past quite in the way the Brits do. So it is fun to watch Lucy Worsley, Dr. Worsley, go about her business. And she seems to specialize in the Georgians, which is great because that certainly makes her worth listening to about Jane Austen. But she's done stuff on the Six Wives of Henry VIII, who have come back into historical vogue. There's even a musical about them in the West End, you know. and Worsley's even done that. I mean, Worsley's kind of got her finger in every pie, and it's great because she is funny, erudite, intelligent, articulate. It is really interesting. I've liked the TV shows I've seen by her, and I'm really enjoying Jane Austen at Home. Worsley is very focused on how the home runs in the time of Austen in the Georgian age. And she sort of does back formation when she reads Austen's letters and the letters of the rest of Austen's extended family. And then she's great at tying it back to what she knows about homes and focusing that on how Jane would live in her home. As someone who practices domestic skills and domestic sciences, such as spinning, weaving, knitting, quilting, crocheting, canning, preserving, freezing, etc., I find this amazing. I find this fascinating and very interesting. So I highly recommend Jane Austen at Home. It's an excellent listen, too, on Audible. Something I really like, well, I want to dip backwards to the isochronic sleep music. I had a funny experience with it. First of all, it works for me. But after a few days of it, I was missing the voice of Dame Juliet Stevenson reading my Jane Austen novels that I typically sleep with. It's true, I have found that I like listening to Austen novels, and I have selected which parts I like to listen to of specific novels, because they just make me feel like I'm visiting my girlfriends in the Regency era. I'm not quite normal. But at any rate, yes, the people who make the isochronic sleep music that I've liked are called the Honest Guys. I think I called them Two Honest Guys because for some reason I can't name. My first video from them on YouTube was under the link Two Honest Guys. I can't explain that, but at any rate, they call themselves the Honest Guys for their YouTube channel. They have a lot of meditations, a lot of sleep music. I really like them, and it's working pretty well for me. The interesting experience for me, when I listen to a book at bedtime, I wake up when the book stops, and I do that with the isochronic and tonal music. But the interesting thing is, with the books, I don't feel like I sleep as deeply. With the isochronic music, I may only sleep for about 55 minutes, but I sleep hard, and I dream hard, and I'm dreaming these very weird very Jungian archetypal dreams. So, buyer beware. But yes, the isochronic sleep music, I've now been doing it for over a week, off and on, alternating with Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, read by Dame Juliet Stevenson. Make of it what you will. I'm always on the search for sleep things that work. Here's what I don't want you to do. There are a lot of Kickstarters that I think are questionable with sleep machines. I would want you to know there are a lot of strategies for sleep using technology. I don't think you have to buy a machine from Kickstarter, whoever makes it. I think if you are searching YouTube or Spotify or Pandora or whatever you're using to listen to, you're probably going to find what you need without paying an arm and a leg. No particular cooking this weekend, so let's hop on to the blather. This is mostly old news, so I hope I won't dwell on it too much. As I have said, I'm practicing my ASL and looking forward to the beginning of classes on August 22nd at College of the Canyons. I have a new picture of Queenie up. This is one of the ones I was sent by Cook's Collies, so I'm feeding them to you one or two at a time. In this one, you can see that she has beautiful long white boots on all four legs and a big white tip on her tail. She's very white. Now, when you see the next one where she's flipped over, you will see she's not a white collie. She has definite solid on her back, but I do like that she has so much white. She's just beautiful. And again, she was born May 10th, so we are heading towards her 2-month birthday about the time I pick her up. In the meantime, Captain. We have noticed that Captain has gotten very emotionally responsive in a way she wasn't so much as a young puppy. And so she really varies with our moods. It's very interesting to watch. She's a good barometer. So if my husband and son are tired of each other's company after a long day of homeschooling and homework, Captain will come in my room. And I realize I can be an emotional break for her. I can tell when I'm getting wound up because she starts getting excited. I've been watching Cesar Millan's clips and a few other people because Millan isn't always as clear about what he's doing. Sometimes he likes to play it as I am the mystic dog whisperer and look at the miracles. But he does give some good guidelines. And one of the things I really like is he talks about people tend to approach dogs with hysteria, that they think it's funny when dogs get all wound up. But that's also how you get bitten. It's also how a big dog loaded with teeth gets confused about what your intentions are. So Millan does one good thing where he talks about using calm and confidence to approach a dog. And just like I feel like Minerva has taught me many new things about cats, even with all my years of having cats, I feel like Captain is teaching me many new things about dogs. Captain becomes hysterical and excited when she sees us. And I think she really learned that from us. I don't think we do it a whole lot, but I think we did it enough that Captain believes this is what she should do. So I have taken to meeting Captain with calm and confidence. And one of the best inspirations here was my hubs, my partner, because he figured it out too. He realized he has very strong emotions and Captain identifies with him. He's really her person. And she is highly reactive to any negative emotions on his part. And she dreads them. I mean, she anticipates them and dreads them. She's a very intelligent dog. As my veterinarian down in Agua Dulce said, you do realize this dog is a genius, right? Excuse me. She's very, very smart. And I have had a lot of smart dogs in the last few rounds, and Captain is impressing me. So the idea is she's smart, she's a problem solver, and she's emotionally sensitive. She's very much a border collie, and she very much looks to her shepherd, which is my husband. So what he has done is he studies them both. She runs up to him in hysteria, and he makes her sit immediately, and he works with her on stay. So when she wants food, she has to go in her crate, but she has to sit and she has to stay until he releases her. And when she wants out of her crate, she can't just throw herself at the door of the crate and jump all around excitedly. She has to sit, she has to stay, even when he opens the door of the crate. This has been really life-changing for all of us. That now when she comes up to me, I immediately make her sit because she tends to get hysterical. I make her sit, I make her stay. And she's completely changed the way she approaches me indoors. She's very calm when she approaches me. And the reward is also there, that when she sits and when she stays, I'll make her do a play dead. Now, she seems to see play dead as an act of submission, which it should be. It's lying on her side with her head down. And Milan uses that. When he thinks a dog is really out of control, he'll do what I would call play dead. He makes them lie on their side with their head against the ground till they're calm. He doesn't hold them there. He doesn't pin them there. He can actually make them do it without touching them or pushing them. He's just indicating. And the dog who's trying to please the human, because dogs really do want to do that, will obey him because he projects the calm confidence. So we've been doing that with Captain. I mean, initially when you're teaching the dog, I would push her shoulder gently, but we never shoved her or held her or anything like that, because now you're just intimidating the dog. But she will do that to me, that she believes, I think, that I want a lot of submission. So when she sees me, she will now automatically sit, lie down, and then play dead. So now, of course, you know what I'm doing, right? I'm teaching her to roll over from the play dead position. And she's starting to do it, and she gets anxious. And I can tell, because when you teach her a new trick, she will mouth your hand or your foot. And so I've stopped that. I've said, if you're anxious, I'll pet you and talk to you, but you don't get to mouth me to show your anxiety, because that can, if you're startled in any way, that's going to lead to an accident, an unpleasant biting accident. And we don't want you to use your mouth to express your emotions. It's not a good idea in a big, powerful dog like Captain. So we're working on all that. So Captain is getting her serious training now that she's 11 months old. She's getting the real serious, you can't spend the rest of your life with these bad habits training. And it's working very, very well. And what I'm really pleased about is how well my husband has taken to the role of trainer. He has been to several classes with our various Newfoundlands training them. But this is really the first time I've seen him engage it in such a strong, positive way. And he's enjoying it too. There's a lot of rewards for everybody. Next, I mentioned the cold snap, so you can see a picture of me standing there for the record on June 18th wearing a heavy wool and silk and yak and various types of wool sweater. And finally, there was Father's Day and the Father's Day commemorative selfie, which has to be one of the best pictures we've ever taken as a family. It's so adorable. We are at Sea Fresh, our favorite seafood restaurant in Ojai. And we went to Ojai, and we stopped for our favorite sushi place, and then we strolled Ojai. And we had a lovely time when we got out to Ojai, and then we settled in a seafood place. So you can see we had a really nice time, and we had the beautiful discussion about what makes our marriage, and it was a lot of fun. Queenie's big road trip, yes, July 11th through the 13th, we are on. As far as I know, I am going out there. I haven't heard back from Amy Cook, but she seems to be taking it for granted that I'm showing up at that time because she's working on Queenie. Now it's about supplies, so I will tell you more about that later. She requires that you get NuVet puppy food and NuVet nutritional supplements, which is a fine idea. If that's what's working for her dogs, I'm great with that. So we're up to the puppy supplies. I've got the puppy food. I haven't gotten the nutritional wafers yet. That's on the next paycheck. It's really just accumulating stuff. We've got a harness, we've got leashes, we've got a collar, we've got a carrier, we've got little chewies to help her stay calm on the plane. I can't remember if I've got a chew toy for her, but I'll have to get her toys for that. So that's all going along very, very well. And so Queenie is coming, and I expect she will be home with us in the afternoon of July 13th. It's going to be a bit of a stressful trip. On the other hand, I've never seen Kansas, and I'm really going to see it. I'm going to drive 100 miles across it to get out to a rural area near Elk Falls. So, part of me says, oh, Lord, I'm going to land and be in a new hotel, and I'm going to land and have a very quiet evening after I land, I think. And then the next morning I pick up my rental car, and I drive out to Cook's farm. And that should be a really nice day of just touring, of just seeing Kansas and eating some good food and probably stocking the hotel room for that night because I have a little kitchenette. And then I'm going to pick up Queenie. And then it's going to get a little more harem-scarum because I'm going to be with a unnerved puppy away from her family for the first time in a foreign place for both of us and with a lot of wee-wee pads and treats is all I can say. And we're just going to have a should be a very interesting afternoon and evening and night together. My plane is at 6 a.m. the next morning, which is, again, going to be a challenge to get back to the airport and get all that in time, to be in the airport in time with this very young puppy. So this could be pretty exciting. We will see how this works. And then, it's a flight. We fly, I think, to Texas, and then we fly across to L.A. So there will be a break for her. She won't be on a plane all that time, and it is first class. And, we're just going to try to do our best with it. So that is Queenie and her big road trip. And now I have to start looking at anything I might need for getting her on the plane, which is the next thing, is proof of her vaccinations and everything. I'm a little scared of the last half of that trip, but it's only going to be a very strange 20 hours, and then we will be home with our family. Minerva gets the last word. As I so often do, I have a picture of her lying on my beautiful temperature blanket on the bed. And what Minerva would tell you is we are in this period of being safely at home. That it's been so nice lately, and I haven't had a lot of chance to say this, but since I got my break going to Mammoth, that really kind of settled me down. And, I had a very rough first half of 2022 that included problems, not with my job, but with, the supervision thing at my job. And that was just stressful because I had to relearn all the supervision very quickly. And it wasn't really the best experience I've had with it. And I'm lucky because people at my job were supportive. And at the same time, we lost Eleanor, and I have some questions about how that happened, but I'm just dealing with the reality that Eleanor is gone. And we've had some big expenses, but it's led to good things like Queenie, my husband's eyes getting fixed. So that's been very good in the long run, but it's been challenging in the short run. And of course, Minerva and her big expenses. So we gained a lot of ground during the quarantine by just staying home. We lost a lot of ground this year and sort of learned it's very fragile, and the inflation and gas prices aren't helping. And I could whinge all day. But the reality is going to Mammoth and coming back has taught me how happy I am to be at home with my family. That, again, we have come through things pretty well. We are still working. We are still running our life on the farm. And, if you're going to live through hard times nationally, we're in as good a place as we can be. That we are together. We have a system worked out for my son's education. My husband is able to be at home with my son and to help run things at home. We are able to have pets. The animals, the larger livestock, is aging out at a good pace, at the way we want it. So we're not alone on our farm. We don't have the big empty farm that we had when we first moved here. But we're gradually sort of shifting our lifestyle away from the livestock. And we're still on our farm, and the weather is beautiful. And I have a lot of yarn. So I've been very happy. I have a lot of craft stuff. I could sew, I can embroider, I can quilt, I can make clothes, I can knit, I can crochet, I can weave, I can spin. I feel very fortunate. I feel like I have accumulated the stuff around me that has helped me to live a good, peaceful life on the farm, which is what I want to live. And all of us, touch wood, our healths are going pretty well and things are good. So I think what Minerva would tell you is that she's happy because we're all at home safely together. So please don't anybody tell her about those 4 days we're planning in Yosemite, which, are going to be pretty rough. She's going to a kennel, but okay, just don't tell them, all right? Okay, so on that happy note, we are all doing well. I appreciate that you're still following me on the podcast. It is good to know you're out there. I want to thank the people who send a lot of response. I really appreciate you. I'm not going to start naming names because there is a cluster of you, and I'm so afraid I'll miss somebody. But I really do appreciate all the responses and all the feedback. It's really nice not to feel alone out there. The summer agenda looks like the trip to Kansas to get Queenie, followed by a few days in September up in Yosemite. After that, I'm not going to Sunnybank because that's just too much at this point. And we have to start putting aside money for the inevitable end of the year taxes and savings and whatnot. But after that, the next distance out in November, I am hoping to go down to Stitches Southwest on the Sunday, if no other day. I do have enough points to get a free hotel room for one night, so that will probably be Sunday night. I'm toying with, I'd rather have it Sunday night because I have patients on Saturday. So I will probably go down Sunday to Stitches Southwest. The good news is the good stuff will be sold. I won't be in a buying frenzy because I'll know it's the last day. And it'll be buying from your friends. Going to see my old friends, going to see Redfish, going to see anybody from the Cognitive Fiber Retreat days who is there. I really just want to see my buddies and say hello. And I will be doing that. So hopefully. As things stand right now, I expect to spend one night there so I don't have to drive to Pasadena and drive back in one day and buck traffic on a Sunday night and all that sort of thing. So there's that. And at Christmas, I'm hoping to take a few days off and then I will be going to the Grand Canyon next June, provided we can find someone to house sit the livestock. So that's the future calendar roughly sketched out. In the meantime, yes, everybody get your shots, keep your masks on hand, maintain social distance, get your kids their shots, everybody wash your hands, wear the masks. If you're in a place where you need to wear masks, don't give them up yet. But most of all, everybody, please stay safe. Take care of each other. That's the big message right now. Take care of each other. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.